Hey, what up? It's Quentin, Idjit Reads and Rambles, and I'm here doing a Whateverday Reads video after a while because, frankly, for a minute I just wasn't doing that good. And I decided I'm just gonna back away from the channel for a little bit, and now I think I'm ready to come back. Perhaps later in the semester I'll be even busier, so I won't be able to, but that's how it is. That's how it is, right? I'm gonna do another 5 albums video. I've been working with my boy Chris. Thanks, Chris, on stuff to put together for that. But yeah, I'm gonna keep going with the videos, and let's just get down to it, okay? This is a Whateverday Reads. So whatever am I reading today? Well, thanks for asking. A lot of these things I will discuss in video form. I should actually just point to the ones right now that I'm going to discuss in video form, just get them off the table, because there's some stuff in here. I'm also going to do a March of the Mammoths read. Of course, I'm not going to be able to finish it. I don't have time for anything. Doing a video on Audrey Szasz, I don't know. Invisibility, a Manifesto. This is a beautifully written book. But you need to get this if you're interested in transgressive literature. Hallucinatory book, uncertain everything, harrowing book too. Invisibility Manifesto, Audrey Szasz, amphetamine sulfate, 5 out of 5. What else? Oh, I read Willard and his bowling trophies. I'm gonna do a video on this, but I've been actually, my girlfriend and I have been reading this aloud. It's been really great, so I'm gonna wait till we're done that. And it's been nice to see, I read it for the second time, but it's been very nice to see how she has been taking to Brautigan, because she's never read Brautigan, and this is not the best place to start, so it's interesting to see that she is finding a great deal to like in this book as well. I'm also going to be doing a video on Astrophil and Stella. Again, not an analysis video, not even anything bordering on a good video, just talking about it generally, because this thing has been talked about to death over the course of many a discussion, many a century of discussion. But that's what I'm talking about at another time. What am I talking about right now? Well, right now I am talking, I guess, about 40 Sonnets by Don Patterson. This guy is a poet from Scotland. I think this came out in 2015, if I'm correct. I'm not sure. At any rate, it came out in the 2000s. I'm certain of it. And what it is 40 sonnets. Now, it's interesting to contrast Patterson with a guy like Sidney, because Patterson his style is very, very different. Sidney's sonnets are more concerned with building some kind of argument. Sometimes Patterson will narrate them. Patterson is coming at this 400 years after Sidney, so what that leads to is a lot of experimentation. What was so cutting edge about Sidney is that sometimes he would write with 6 iambs in one line instead of 5. Whoa! I'm being a little basic there. I mean, that's not actually what it is, but that is what was considered innovation at the time. It would not be the case now. People would be like, oh wow, you're just a sonnet, but you literally just tacked one more on. But what is going on in this is we get like a lot of interesting sort of formal experimentation. He is a very traditionally talented sonneteer, I should say. But we get this one too, which I'm not a fan of. I think that's I don't know what the expression is, but I'm not a fan of that. That just seems like a cop-out. But anyways, there's also this one, right? It's in couplets. Really interesting stuff, I think. But I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, because I'm not through it yet. I started it yesterday, and I'm just trying to like really soak it in before I do any sort of in-depth discussion on it. Instead, I'll read you one poem, because I think this one is quite good. It's called The Air. What is this dark and silent caravan, that being nowhere neither comes nor goes, that being never has no hour or span, of which we can say only that it flows? How was it that this empty data stream, this cache of dead light, could so lose its way it wandered back to feed on its own dream? How did that dream grow to the waking day? What is the sound that fades up from the hiss, like a glass some random downdraught had set ringing, now full of its only note, its lonely call, drawing on its song to keep it singing? When will the air stop breathing? Will it all come to nothing if nothing came to this? Very bleak poetry in a lot of instances, but I might do a video on this, maybe, right? But it has been a lot of fun to sort of climb around in, definitely. What else have I been reading? I've also been reading some Ben Jonson poetry. I bought this yesterday as well at the used bookstore for like $4. I need to reinforce it. But I don't know how long I'll be keeping this, to be quite honest, because as much as I do like a poem like, I understand not everyone cares for the piss and vinegar, but Ode to Himself, where he's, it reminds me of William Gaddis in some ways, actually. Just the level of like old man grumpiness that seems pretty justified. It reminds me of that in some ways, and I think it's quite good poetry, although I understand if you think the personality is not really agreeable, I suppose. I'll read I suppose I'll read 2 stanzas, and it's about his poems not being, or his plays not being received well. Come leave the loathed stage, and the more loathsome age, where pride and impudence in faction knit, usurp the chair of wit, indicting and arraigning every day something they call a play. Let their fastidious vain commission of the brain run on, and rage, sweat, censor, and condemn. They were not made for thee, lest thou for them. Say that thou pour'st them wheat, and they would acorns eat. 'Twere simple fury still thyself to waste on such as have no taste, to offer them a surfeit of pure bread whose appetites are dead. No, give them grains their fill, husks, draught to drink and swill. If they love lees and leave the lusty wine, envy them not, their palates with the swine. I know it's a pretty pompous like attitude coming through there, but I think it's a well-constructed poem. I really do. And there's something that John Donne does in his poems, where he'll use, instead of just sticking to iambic pentameter or one certain meter for a great deal of time, he'll change it up and he'll invent his own forms, and he'll sort of do all this interesting stuff. I love that. There's something about when you read lines or couplets in meter, and they have differing lengths of differing numbers of feet. It really sounds good on the ear. Like, come leave the loathed stage, and the more loathsome age, where pride and impudence in faction knit, usurp the chair of wit. Love that. And I very much find his personality, I find that type of personality perhaps more interesting to engage with than other people do. But I'll move on. I'll move on to the Anchor book of Chinese poetry. I got this when I was coming home from reading week. I was coming home from Christmas break. And there's this awesome little sonnet sequence in the back here, because I'm getting pretty obsessed with the sonnets. Been writing my own sonnets. Not very good, but I'm doing it, boy. And these things are quite interesting. I wish there was the whole sequence in here. It's by Feng Shi, a poet born 1905, died 1993 in China. Very interesting sort of poems here. I gotta say, I'll read one of them. The Sonnet 1. Our hearts are ready to experience the miracles that take us by surprise. After millennia with few events, a sudden comet or a whirlwind flies. And it is in those moments in our lives, in passion, something like a first embrace, that all past griefs and happiness contrive to crystallize a vision in our gaze. So we adore the tiny insects that, after they copulate once in a life, or after they encounter some deep threat, will terminate their silent, luscious lives, and know that our entire being waits for a whirlwind or a sudden meteor. I like that. I very much like that, and there's a great deal of stuff to like in here. There's also an awesome little metaphor where he talks about, the poet talks about this, wanting their poems to hold the invisible, hold the ungraspable, hold the ineffable, like a flag holds the wind. That's so good. I don't really have enough there to tell you about the poet's personality, but I love that poet's sort of sensibility. I Can't get enough of it. I really think that perhaps you would like it. And this is a great volume because it kind of stretches back to the earliest days, yeah, 1122 to 256 BCE is the first, the Zhao dynasty, I think. The Zhou dynasty? I don't know. But it goes all the way back then to basically the present, I think. I don't know when it actually leaves off. The last poet in here is 1956 and still living. They were born 1956. So a lot of interesting stuff in this volume. If you can find it, definitely find it. I'm so lucky that I caught a copy that's so cheap. And of course, my boy, Li Po is in here. Everyone likes Li Po. I'll read Drinking Alone by Moonlight because it's just gorgeous. A pot of wine in the flower garden, but no friends drink with me. So I raise my cup to the bright moon and to my shadow, which makes us three. But the moon won't drink, and my shadow just creeps about my heels. Yet in your company, moon and shadow, I have a wild time till spring dies out. I sing, and the moon shudders. My shadow staggers when I dance. We have our fun while I can stand, then drift apart when I fall asleep. Let's share this empty journey often, and meet again in the milky river of stars. Not my favorite translation of this poem, but a great deal to like there, and I love, Li Po has a really strong ability to sort of have this explosion of a final line, and there's something on a different translation. I think it was something like, something meet far again in the river of stars. Then something about that R internal rhyme is very pleasing to my ear. I don't prefer this. I'll see if I can find the translation I prefer and then link it in the description. Yeah, but this is a great little volume, and it's been really awesome to just sort of, sometimes I just open it at random and start reading without knowing anything, right? So if you have any recommendations for stuff in here particularly, let me know. I could just discuss the poems in any given section. That could be cool, right? Yeah. So what else have I been reading? Well, there's two more. One of them is a little different. It's a different type of book. And Chris, who I mentioned, I think I mentioned him, I want to do a 5 albums video where I take albums from the fans. From the fans! Not fans. You're not fans. You're just people who talk books with me. And yeah, we need to do this. Japrock sampler. Julian Cope. Chris introduced me to Les Rallizés Dénudes, and that is a group from China who have their own chapter in this book. I go on Wikipedia after, I'm like, because Live 77 just blew my freaking mind, and that was the one Chris linked me to. It blew my mind. And then I go on Wikipedia and I start Googling, and I see Julian Cope, who was the lead singer for the Teardrop Explodes. I particularly like their song Treason, although Chris doesn't like it. Treason. Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. But this is a great sort of just resource for Japanese musical history. He gives you albums you should avoid. There's the author's top 50 is in here. I took my bookmark out because it had the name of the library on it, or the name of my school on it. And, I'm very enigmatic, as they say. But a great deal of good stuff in here, I gotta say. Great source of recommendations, and his writing, while it's not anything particularly show-stopping, it is just really interesting you can really just, it's not laboriously written. It's a very smooth style of writing, and it's just a very good resource for Japanese rock music. Okay, yeah, here's just the list, right? I'll go from the top, I'll go from the top 5, okay? 5, J.A. Caesar, Kokyu Junreika. 4, Far East Family Band, the album Parallel World. 3, Les Rallizés Dénudes, Heavier Than the Death in the Family. Great album. And then both the top 2 are tied. Speed, Glue, and Shinky, Eve, Flower Traveling Band, Satori. Those are, I'm going to be getting on there and starting to, listen to those, because I actually want to do a series of videos where I talk about albums coming from this book. This has been a great resource, and I hope you should. I hope you take this out of your library, because the Japanese rock traditions are quite rich, and there's quite a lot of experimentation going on that, for some reason, people in the West just think is happening in the West. It's not. Case in point, Les Rallizés Dénudes. But we'll talk about them in a 5 albums video. Don't you worry, they'll make it. And now we're talking about what I'm reading for. Oh, actually, you know what? I'll leave that for last. I've been peeking in and out at Last Stories and Other Stories. I've been reading them aloud with my girlfriend. Pretty good, great range in this collection, but I haven't read too many of them. I read the first couple, and then I've been jumping around to some of the Japanese stories. There's a really good one. It's really funny, I should say. A ghost is like hard of hearing, so a guy's trying to talk to a ghost to figure out what being dead is like, and the ghost is like, huh? What do you say? Huh? It's hilarious. But anyways, we're getting back to the March of the Mammoths. Of course, I've jumped around this book quite a bit. I read it a lot, and like I said, I wasn't doing very well for a little while. But one of the things that helps me when I'm not doing very well is reading Robert Burton's The Anatomy of Melancholy. I just feel such a strong kinship with this man, and the range in this book is quite tremendous as well. I love the digressions. I love the shifts. Okay, there's a lot to like about this book. It is an awesome oddity in some ways. He's having a serious discussion about whether lycanthropy, people who turn into werewolves, people who claim to turn into werewolves, whether that's melancholy. It's a great oddity in some spots. It does have some slow spots and some tedious spots already. I've randomly skipped to some, but now I've reread it, and I'm right here again, basically where I was on my first linear reading before. I was like, I can't do this right now. I'm getting it more than I was the first time, and I'm noticing that some parts are genuinely funny. Some parts are very chatty. There's a lot going on just like tonally in this book. There's a great diversity of vast shifts in register. Occasionally you get that he's like almost crying when he's writing this. Of course, it's really meticulously ordered and researched, and I don't know, but you get the sense that there's real blood in this book, and that sometimes he just wants to make you laugh, and sometimes Burton just wants to put his arm around you and just say, it's all good, bud. There's a lot going on here. I hope to just eat away at this over March. I definitely want to finish the first part by the end of March, but again, I have a million essays to do, and I'm not sure how much bandwidth I'm going to have for a book like this, but I wanted to get into the second part by the end of March. Yeah. Because my March of the Mammoth situation isn't particularly conducive to Mammoth reading, given that I'm studying and I have a million essays to write, and by the end of March it'll be like almost exam season, so perhaps this will be relegated to nighttime reading, and perhaps not even then, because I'll be reading other stuff, right? So be it, right? Cool. Glad you can come here and humor me for a little bit, and yeah, that's it. That's all. Peace and groovy, and have a good one.